starts. You should have been given a unique username and probably a generic password to start with, and you would enter that on this screen and hit login. Once you hit login, it's going to come to this screen here. Actually, it's going to come to this screen. This is your project manager page, and this will be sort of the landing page where everything happens, where you can kind of launch into everything else. So I'm going to explain this page a little bit, just what's on this page, before we get into working through a project itself. Your first time logging in, the first thing that you're going to want to do is come up here to the right-hand corner, and you're going to want to click on the My Settings page, or My Settings tab. And what that's going to do is open up a screen that looks like this. It has your email, your name, and if you look down below here, it also has the current password. And because the current password was generic, you are going to want to log in most likely and create a new password. So that's where you would do it, is through the My Settings page. You'll see up in here there are several different ways to change or customize the look and feel of informANALYTICS. The color is certainly a preference. The NAICS, we'll talk about that. This is the interaction relative to the NAICS screen that we'll talk about, and whether or not you want to show some help features with NAICS in there. And then also, all the way throughout, you can turn on a help feature, which actually I'm going to do for us today, just so you can see how the help feature interacts with the product all the way through. So by default, it's set to no, but you can save it as yes. So I'm going to save that right now. And it says my settings were saved. And so I'm good. Once I have my settings the way I want them, I'm going to go back here to Project Manager. We talked a little bit early on about creating a customized feel for informANALYTICS. One of the customized fields that we can do for you is up in this space up in here. This is the banner space, and one of the things that we can do for you is add pictures or add a name or customize this so it looks and feels like your own site. It's not necessary. It's just one of those things. It's part of the customization. And as we walk through the model, I'll also point out other places and other ways that the model should be customized for you. Recently, you'll know that I sent out an email suggesting that we had added a couple of new features. These new features are along the left-hand side over here under documentation. We added two new help manuals. One is an explanation of calculations, and one is a user's guide. If you click on either one of those, it takes you to a new tab. And for instance, the tab here is the informANALYTICS user's guide. This user's guide is going to be very helpful for anybody logging in for the very first time, and possibly for anybody that just wants a little bit of an overview about what the tool is and how it works. But as you'll see, as we go through this, I'm just going to click down a little bit. It takes you right to the very beginning of what I've already showed you, and that is the login information. You'll see there's the login screen, edc@informanalytics.com, logging in, and from there it's step by step. It walks you through every screen that you're going to need to create your very first project. So I'm not going to walk through this user's guide in detail right now, because what I'm going to do is actually walk you through the project itself online. But I wanted to show you that this is available for anybody for the first time, and it has a lot of detail there. The screenshots, just as a reference, are obviously not all going to match exactly what you see on your screen, but for the most part, it's a close approximation of what you can expect. The next user guide, essentially, is this explanation of calculations. And we put this on here because there are a lot of folks that use the tool that just say to themselves, well, can you tell me a little bit more about the numbers and where the numbers are coming from and the different formulas? So what we've done is we've taken and put together a user guide here that explains all of the various calculations and how they're being calculated, essentially. The calculation of benefits follows the template of the internal report, and I'll show you the internal report a little bit later. But essentially every number that is associated on the internal report is reflected on this explanation of calculations worksheet. And so you'll see that the total costs, for instance, are an amalgamation, a summation of the bond interest, the mortgage tax, the property tax, the sales tax, etc. And it works its way down through all of those various calculations. If you have more questions and you want any more detail, you'll certainly have to get back with us. But this is a pretty good overview for anybody and possibly for your board that says, you know, well, how is this working? Where do the numbers come from? So I wanted to show you that those are two user's guides that are available to you. And again, they're along the left-hand side over here. If you have any problems opening them, let me know. When you are setting on this project manager page, you're also going to see the My Recent Projects over on the left, and that'll also be listed here in the middle. Now, this project management page is going to capture or save every project that you enter. So there's no limit to the number of projects that can be listed here. You may choose over time to delete some, but if you choose not to, there's no reason why any project would ever fall off of this page. So all of the detail will be here, and it will be sorted pretty much by date order. Along the top here, then, there are two tabs. Depends on how you are going to be interacting with the tool. For most of you, you're going to be creating a project for the very first time. So what I'm going to do is just show you what that looks like briefly, because the create a project and the project management process are exactly the same, with the exception that when you're creating a project, you're entering new data, and when you're project managing, you are essentially working with a project that has already been created, and maybe you're just editing data. But the fields are exactly the same, and just for the sake of expediency, I'm going to use the project that we've already entered. But I want to show you that it looks exactly the same. So you would go into Create a Project. And on the Create a Project screen, and again, this is all part of the user's guide if you wanted to see that, you're going to enter in all these various fields. We have talked to some of you that have said you've tried to enter the fields here and hit Save and Continue, and you've gotten an error screen. Probably that's because you didn't realize there were two tabs here, and the reason is we've got two tabs. One is the applicant address, which in some cases may not necessarily be the same as the project location. But the goal of the tool is to encourage you to fill out both. And if they are the same, you can just hit Copy Applicant Address, and it'll pre-populate these fields to save you some time. So make sure as you're going through that you're going to fill in both of those. But all of these fields are going to be exactly the same, so I just wanted to show you that Create a Project starting here is going to look an awful lot like what I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to go to the Project Manager. Our Speedy Internet Tech Park Expansion project. Before I click on it to show you that the fields are the same, I just want to show you there are three buttons over here to the right. One is if you want to just quickly go right to the internal report, you can do that, and it'll bring up the report. I'm not going to do that now. I'll show you that at the end. Or you can go in and edit this project, which is what I will do. And the third option is if you want to simply delete the project. What I'm going to do is go in and edit the project. You can also click on the project itself, and the default there is going to take you to view the internal report. So if you want to edit, you click over here on the edit screen, or the edit button, and it will bring up the same screen that I just showed you and Create a Project. And again, these are all going to be exactly mirror one another, because for editing a project, you're going to want to go back and use the same fields. So we've got an applicant name, and from this point forward, I'm going to treat this kind of like it's a new project or create a new project. It's just that the fields are already pre-populated. So the applicant name, the address, yada yada. The project location in this case is the same. We just copied it over, so it's the same thing. But we've got both tabs, applicant address and project location, filled in. The next question Is this part of a multi-phase project? This is one, a tool or a question that we added for one of your counterpart suggestions to help with Paris reporting, but you would click one or the other, and it primarily helps with filling in the Paris reporting later on. Then when you're done with this page, you're going to hit Save and Continue. That's going to take you to the next tab. You'll have to forgive, our internet connection is a little bit slow today, and we'll have to work with that. Before I show you how this is working, I just want to draw your attention over here to the left-hand side. All of the tabs are going to be listed along the left-hand side over here under Project Information. So we're now on the Description tab, but if I wanted to, for instance, skip the Description Industry Employment tab, I could just go right to the Investment tab because I'm in the Edit mode. If I'm in Create a Project mode, I can't skip any of these because I'm going to get an error message, and it's going to tell you you have to go through each one of these in order. So every screen is going to need to be filled out unless you want to see those little error messages. And those error messages are just meant as reminders more than anything else. Along the left-hand side as well is just a little helpful tip or tool to show you what this project or what this tool is there designed to help you for. And these will change as we get through each of the tabs. And if you remember, I also turned on that Help feature under My Settings. So the Help feature is this little area that will show up here. So in case anybody's kind of not missing that, let me just highlight that for you. It actually is this area right in here. That's what we're talking about when we say the Help feature. The project name is the description. What do you call this project? The project code is what you enter just for your own internal tracking purposes. Just set up your own code system. If you have one already, you can just apply it here. We added this recently, the project description narrative box, and that is, some of you suggested that you actually do like to write a little bit about what the project is for your board, explain a little bit about some of the details. So we added this in here, and this narrative will then show up on the reports that are being printed out. And that way you don't have to do a separate narrative if you don't want to. It is optional. It's not required. It won't generate an error message if you don't fill it out. So that's completely optional. The next box here is the type of transaction that you're going to be engaging in. Right now we have 3 options to choose from, whether this is a bond issuance, a lease, some sort of a lease back, or a tax exemption project or transaction. And right now we're going to just choose bonds and notes issuance. I'll show you how that could be different later on. Is it a not-for-profit? In our case, no. And will there be mortgage tax exemptions? In this case, yes. And you'll see with every box that you click on, one of these helpful tips shows up just to show you what we're talking about. So we click on Save and Continue. The next screen is our industry screen. And I'm showing you over here on the left-hand side, it's the industry tab. Here's where you're going to choose your NAICS code, and this is what's going to drive the multipliers that are factored into the indirect and induced, what we call the spillover effects. It's also going to help drive your direct effects as well. So choosing your industry. If for any reason you don't know what industry to choose, we have added this tab here, this button here, and by clicking on the Search NAICS codes, it will take you out to the internet, to the NAICS website, and you can do a search for the type of industry that you are projecting this project to be. For our purposes here, you select the sector, and that's really by 2-digit NAICS code. And for our purposes, I'm saying that this particular project is going to be a manufacturing project. That is going to then generate a list of industry names within that sector. And you'll see they all are in that 3.1 to 3.3 sector range. We've only gone out to 3 codes here. Obviously, NAICS goes out much longer than that, but there's really not much benefit in going too deep on those NAICS codes. It can get a little confusing, so we've limited it to 3. I will just show you, just if I were, for instance, to hit something like something different, financial services, you'll see that the industry name changed, and here's the industries associated with financial services. So for today, I'm just going to go back and click my manufacturing, and in this case, I think I had chosen this one. So then we hit Save and Continue, and those are the industries. The next set of boxes that you're going to be filling in will likely be information that you received from your application. So just a quick word, so let me just talk a side note. Some of the IDAs that we have worked with have actually adapted their application to exactly mirror the inputs that they're putting into informANALYTIcs. Some haven't. Some are already very close and they don't need to do any adaptation. We can certainly talk with you about that. It's not that hard. The number of data fields that we have in informANALYTIcs is relatively small, so it's not that hard to adapt an application to make sure that you're getting the exact questions answered so that you don't have to guess. The goal here is to make this very easy and very seamless with your application process. So you're going to enter up here under Project Employment the number of jobs created and or the number of jobs retained, and they should be in different fields. So in this particular project, we have an organization that is going to be adding 20 jobs, but part of the benefit here is that they're going to retain the 100 that are already at work here. The next one, workers' compensation, essentially is what is the average salary associated with this industry. Now that's going to be generated by the previous page in the industry that you chose, and then based upon the number of jobs and that sort of thing. But there is a feature here where if you know, for instance, a manufacturer is coming in and they're telling you that they're going to generate, let's just say for our purposes in this project, that they're going to generate jobs that are $75,000 on average. Well, according to the industry that we chose, it says that the jobs are going to be closer to $99,000. So maybe I want to override that because I have a better estimate. And then I would enter in here $75,000. So that's how you would do that. And it's only based on the fact that you know, for instance, what a manufacturer or a potential applicant has told you. You don't necessarily need to do anything with that. The default is to use the estimate that's generated by the model. And that will come into play later on for things like labor income and how we generate the direct and spillover effects for labor income. The share of the new jobs that are a part of, what percent or share of the 120 jobs are new to the region or new to the state. So in this particular case, I said, maybe you're attracting this manufacturing firm from a different part of New York State, so it's new to your region, but they're already located in New York State. So it's not new to New York State, but it's actually just new to your region. In some cases, you're getting a new company from out of state, and it would be 100% in both of those boxes. And then in some cases, it might be less than 100%. So you'll have to determine that based upon the applicant yourself. So you'd hit Save and Continue there. You move on, and here's where you get into a little bit more of the meat of the project itself. How much is going to be spent to purchase the real estate to develop this project? That's this tab, or this box. How much are you going to spend on the construction for this project, if it's new, if it's from the ground up, that sort of thing? How much are you going to spend on other taxable improvements, would be non-construction related improvements, but something that's going to generate sales tax, whether it's buying equipment or that sort of thing. And then we have other tax exempt, that would be sales tax exempt purchases, things that you might be using, for instance, an engineer or an attorney or an architect to develop plans those sorts of costs are going to go in that box. So this is going to be your estimate of the project costs for this particular project. These are our estimates. You're going to have your own. You'll hit Save and Continue. And here's where you get into the property and abatement section. Now, the abatement schedules, let's just talk a little bit more about customization. The abatement schedules, you're going to see in this drop-down a couple of abatement schedules that you're not going to be, that you won't recognize, because we've just added them as our own custom schedules. The defaults are going to be your 485s or the no abatement program. Every model that we've generated for any of the IDAs has those three defaults associated with them. If you have standard abatement schedules, that's part of what we can do to customize things for you. We can add in your standard abatement schedules so that they show up in this drop-down and you don't have to add them every time. So that's part of the customization. We would just need to be pointed to your, if you have them on your website, we can go look for them. If you want them added, that sort of thing. Or if you don't have them published, you can send them to us and we'll add those in for you. However, if you are in a unique project and you know that you want to add something that is entirely different or entirely unique, you can also create a custom program. And if you click on that tab, it's going to bring up and you can label that for future reference. And it's going to ask you for the term. You could put in maybe it's a 5, 10, 15, or a 20-year term, or maybe it's something different altogether. And then once you do that, and I'll just show you here, I'm going to label this as a test program over 15 years. And I'm going to hit Create, and it's going to bring up this set of tables. And you can either enter in your own custom percentages. So say it's going to be no tax abatement, or there's going to be no tax for the first, let's just say we'll do it over the last 10 years. It's going to be a 20, 40, 60, sorry, I should have started that in year 11. This is just to hit say OK. So you've entered your own custom abatement program under the word test. Now you can go back for every future time you want to edit this project, and you can play around with those assumptions. So say I want to go to edit that test. Maybe I didn't yet because I have to save and continue. So that's what I have to do first, is save that one in there. Just show you a little bit about how the tool works. So then I go back to Property and Abatement tab, and if I want to edit the test one, I would go into that one, and you'll see it has what I entered. Well, maybe I don't like that. Maybe I want to enter actual abatement amounts for the county, the village, the town, the school district, that sort of thing. You can set it up however you want to create your own custom program. In this particular case, maybe I don't like that one. Maybe I want to go back and I just have no abatement program. You can choose that. Or you can go with one of the standard ones. It's all predicated on what type of incentives you are trying to offer. And again, you have to save and continue once you create one, and then you can go back and edit it. Now, if I'm on 485B because it's a standard one, and I click Edit, you'll see I can't edit one that is standard because it's built into the model. So you can only edit abatement programs that you create yourself as custom programs. The other ones that we enter that are standard are not editable. So you're going to add your abatement program. Now, another note about customization. All of your informANALYTICS models have been customized with unique property tax rates for your own jurisdictions. So in this particular case, we're working with these sets of jurisdictions in our test model. So I clicked on Henrietta, and that's going to associate itself with a couple of school districts. Now you'll notice if I were to click on, let's say, Clarkson, it's going to have a whole different set of school districts. So it's all dependent on where you want, where your project is going to be located. The current assessed value is going to be the value associated with the property currently. So maybe in our case, our current assessed value, and it's just land, let's say it was just land, it's maybe $200,000 in the town of Henrietta. Don't really know, but we'll just go with that for now. And the mortgage amount, will there be a mortgage on this particular property? In our case, they said yes. So we hit save and continue on those assumptions. And it brings us to the last fill-in screen, which is other. I'm going to show you in just a minute that not all the time will other be an option for you to fill in. In our case, back on the very first tab, we selected that this was a bond issuance project or transaction. And so the other has information related to the bond itself. How much will the bond be for? What's the term of the bond? What's the interest rate? And then is it tax exempt or taxable? So these are the assumptions that we've made here. And that is the last fill-in screen. Once you have entered all of that information, you're going to hit Save and View Internal Report. And it's going to take you to one of the standard reports that gets generated and for your own internal consumption. And here is the basic report. You can print the report, you can download the report, either way, however you want. It has been formatted. And you should also note that as we look at a couple of the other reports, we have formatted this because some of the coloring is not necessarily easy to view in a black and white mode. So if there is a need, if you are printing in black and white, you can talk to us and we can set it up so that when it prints, the distinctions between the colors are a little bit better. So just let us know how you want to handle the printing. But basically everything that you just entered is showing up now in this report. You'll see all of the basic information. Again, this project description would be a little bit longer or bigger if there was more information in there. Right down to total cost and the mortgage amount. And then you get into your cost and benefit analysis. And you'll see that we said that this is discounted present value. It's discounted over the term that you have chosen based upon the abatement schedules in this case. So I think ours was over 15 years. Maybe it was 10 years actually. But whatever the term is, it's discounted. And we're using a discounted present value. The discount rate that we're using is about 3.99%. Is that right? 3.49%. So we can talk to you about why we chose 3.49. It's a little bit high in present day, but historically it's a pretty good average. You're looking at the cost-benefit analysis here, total costs to the state and region. What are we going to be incentivizing here with in terms of bond interest that's lost or mortgage tax revenue that's foregone? Again, that's related to the tax-exempt bond, the mortgage tax, the property tax relative to the pilot schedule that we chose, and the sales tax that's being forgiven in this particular project. And then your IDA fee. In this particular case, we have a built-in IDA fee. So one other note about customization, your models are not set up with IDA fees presently. You would need to let us know how to calculate your IDA fees, or if you want those to show up on your reports. It, by default, only comes with an IDA fee. If you have other fees, bond counsel fees, that sort of thing, would not be hard for us to add that information in as well so that you can see. It's sort of a contra number here to the total costs because it is a fee that's coming back to the IDA. So we set it up as a negative to this cost section to the state and the region. And then you get down into the benefits. There's going to be income tax associated with the new jobs, direct, indirect, and induced, and that's all part of the multiplier and built in. One of the benefits of this model is calculating those spillover effects. And there's also going to be construction benefits, sales tax revenue, as well as the regional benefits being your pilot revenues and your sales tax revenues for the regional area. So we've got it differentiated between state and regional benefits, or the total in this case. And then you get into just a summary of the fiscal impact, client incentives, the total anticipated local revenue. So you're going to get a net of your local revenue, and that's particularly useful for your board probably, and a good number to focus on in terms of what you can expect from this particular project. Then you get down in here to your employment numbers. We said we weren't necessarily adding new jobs into the state, so we have 120 direct jobs relative to the existing project, but they're already in the state. But however, in the region, because it's 100% new to your region, you're going to get these spillover effects as well. So that's why these numbers are different. If you had selected 100% to both, these numbers would be the same. And then you get into your temporary construction jobs as well, which are a different number altogether. Your labor income associated with those new jobs, again, state, region, and it gives you some average salaries. You'll see here's the $99,000. That was the average salary we saw back for those direct jobs. And then you get the average salary for the spillover jobs as well. So you can have that as a reference point. And then your property tax revenue, you can see it county, village, town, and school district. So that's your internal report. We have two other standardized reports based upon the detail that we've entered. So I'm clicking now on the board report. Depends how you interact with your board. You may want to give them that internal report, but this board report is just a quicker overview. It's a summary of the same thing that you saw in the internal report. And so they're going to be able to quickly look and see what are the benefits as opposed to the incentives. So the incentives being the project costs. Here's what the state and regional benefits are for this particular project. And they're going to be able to see visually really quickly what the differentials are. They're going to be able to look at those numbers, the number of jobs, and then they're going to be able to see what that revenue, the state and regional benefits in terms of income tax, property tax, sales tax, and then they're going to see the breakdown of the project incentives. So just a different layout, but maybe a little bit more succinct for your board to be able to review any given project. And again, you can print that out as well. If you wanted to send something to the client, the applicant, to just show them, here's what you are getting, here's the incentives that we're providing as opposed to the fees that you're being charged, so that they could see the net benefit that they're getting. They'll be able to see that, and then they'll also have an estimate of what their property taxes are going to be relative to the pilot agreements that have been worked out. So those are the three reports that are generated as a result of the project. And then you can also eventually download this data into Paris and make your reporting through Paris a little bit simpler. So say we get through all of those projects and you say, okay, those numbers are interesting, but let me just see what it would be like under a different abatement schedule. So you click on property and abatement and you say, let's just say it's going to be 100% abatement over 10 years. So you can quickly come back here, hit save and continue, and then go back and view the report. And you can see that the total cost to the state and the region just went up significantly because you are now you changed that pilot schedule to be much more beneficial to the client. And you can just get a better sense, a real quick sense of how those numbers changed. That's one of the benefits of this tool, is the ability to quickly go back and change some of your assumptions. Now I also wanted to go back and just quickly show you if we change the type of transaction. So rather than a bond program, maybe we go back and we do a tax-exempt project, and I hit save and continue. For any project that you do that with, you'll notice down here that the other was grayed out. No longer do I have to enter a bond information in that other section, so that would get grayed out. And the last thing I wanted to point out to you, there is one feature that if you were to try it, you'll probably get this pop-up screen. So in the retail sector, if you were to pick most retail, let's just pick anyone, sporting goods. you're going to get this little pop-up screen. One of the things that the tool tries to help you think through is whether or not your project is truly producing unique economic impact, or whether or not it is not producing what we would call traded sector impact. And in a couple of the sectors, we've built in this pop-up that says this particular industry is probably not providing any traded sector activity. Therefore, we only estimate the direct benefits for you, which may not even be the right thing to do long term, but it's part of what we're working on to accurately assess what true economic benefit is. But it's not going to generate necessarily the same spillover effects. So if you know, for instance, that it is a sporting goods store and it is going to produce something that is truly uniquely economic impact in a traded sector way, you can override our assumption. Our assumption on sporting goods for wholesale retail trade is that it's not traded sector. You can override that by saying this is a traded sector industry and hit save and continue, and the model will work very much the same way that we already did. I just wanted to point out that that is one of those pop-ups. It doesn't occur in all of them, and you'll see if we go back to this one. For the manufacturing one, it didn't pop up. But if you do get that screen, that's what that is. It's trying to help think through, is this truly traded sector activity generating true economic impact? Once you're all done, you can go back to the project manager, and all of the changes that you just made will be there for the next time if you want to go back and edit that project or show, model some different changes and that sort of thing. And that's really how the tool works. I'm sure I didn't encounter all of the various error screens that you might have encountered along the way. But if you use the product the way I just walked through, you shouldn't experience too many of those error screens. And hopefully, this process could take you anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes once you get really comfortable with it. There are not that many data fields to be entered there. So at this point, I am going to see if there are any questions. And if you have submitted a question, we can try to answer those now. Looks like we do have a few questions on here. So just give me 1 minute. I'm going to put you on hold for 1 second while I take a look at the questions, and then I'll be back online here and help answer those questions. Okay, one of the questions that was raised is what really constitutes traded sector activity. So let's just talk through maybe one example. It's just a really simple example, and that is, say we had a grocery store that wanted to expand. We wanted to add a grocery store in our particular region. What that is likely doing is causing consumers to choose between the grocery store that they were using in their particular, that's just down the street versus the grocery store that's coming in a couple of miles away. You're not necessarily going to be bringing in new dollars into that region because the same consumers are going to be using the same stores. You're just shifting consumer choice. And in that sense, that would be what we would call local activity or non-traded sector activity. What we are hoping by traded sector activity is that we are bringing in a new firm from outside of the region that is actually going to cause people to spend money that they wouldn't necessarily spend otherwise. So that's what we're talking about when we think about retail versus, for retail being a grocery store being a local activity versus a traded sector activity. And there are plenty of other examples, and I know that that can get a little confusing. If you have more questions about that, certainly feel free to give us a call. for the most part, the tool will help you kind of with prompts as to what might be traded sector versus non-traded sector, and it's all going to be based upon the industries that are chosen. Let me take a look at one more question here. One of the questions that has been raised here is, can you define your region? And the short answer to that is yes. Most of the regions have been defined by us by default based upon the types of things, or the counties that are reasonably associated with your IDA. But if you have a county, if you have a configuration of counties that you want to make sure are included, we certainly can configure your regions for you. So let us know. That could be part of the customization, and we'll work with you on that. We have a question here that says, how specific are the sales tax rates by the county? And we have gone out and found whatever the associated sales tax rates are for every county across the state. And so your region should be customized with the sales tax rates associated with your county. They are specific to every county based upon OSC, the Office of the State Controller. Another question here, is there a way to compare different benefit programs, for example, a 485B versus a fixed pilot? And that is just something to know that we are working on. We're very close to being able to allow you to do that. The model does not presently do that, other than allowing you to go back and forth and choosing different pilot programs. But we're working on a way for you to be able to do that. So we will keep you informed on that. One question here, is there a way to print the dollar amounts that show up on the graphs in the reports? So for instance, when you hover over the reports, the dollar figures pop up, and presently there isn't a way to print them on the graphs. The dollar figures are produced below in the tables, but they're not necessarily going to show up on the graph itself. So that's not currently possible. One question here is, what if the construction time period is beyond 1 year? For the purposes of this model and for the estimation that's going on, right now we just are assuming that the construction period is 1 year. So the model doesn't have a way to capture multi-year construction projects right now. That's something that, if that's something that happens on a regular basis for you, we'd have to think through the implications of that and work out an alternative for you. You can certainly let us know and talk to us about that. Another question, some school districts and some municipalities have opted out of 485B. Has this been taken into account in the model? And the answer is yes. If those school districts have been opted out, the model does account for that. Another question here is there a way to capture the taxes for special districts, such as ambulance? And right now, we don't capture those special district taxes. We have talked about that. We are capturing, obviously, you all know that the biggest taxes are related to schools and counties, and then your towns or villages. But certainly there are costs associated with special districts. We've been talking about that internally. Whether or not, or how to add those in, and whether or not that's going to be a useful add for everybody. We'll keep talking about that, and we'll keep you informed on what we decide on how to build that into the model. I'm going to hold it open here another minute or two. It appears that we have addressed all of the questions. Either we've written back to you for some very specific ones, or I've just addressed them over the phone here. If there are other questions, I'll hold it open for a couple of minutes. And you can see, for our own benefit, I think I'd like to try to, we did develop a poll question, and I'd like to see how many of you could how many of you will answer that question. So I'm just going to see if this poll works. We're testing this out, and we're just going to say how many projects have you done with informANALYTIcs. So if you could answer that for us right now, the poll is open. I'd like to see how many of you are actually still online here. That's an interesting one as well. So we'll give it another second or two. Okay, it looks like those of you that are online have already answered, so we'll go and take a look at that right now. We'll close the poll. And so it looks like over about 50% of you haven't done anything with the projects yet, and so I'm glad you're online here today. Hopefully we've encouraged you to maybe take a try, give it a test run, see what issues you encounter, and then feel free to give us a call back or help us walk you through any projects. There's a few of you that are using it quite regularly, more than 5 times, and that's good to see. So if you have tips for us, if you have encountered things that would be easier, better, whatever, feel free to give us a shout and let us know some things that you've encountered. I think it would be useful for us to continue to learn more about how you are interacting with the tool itself. That is going to conclude this webinar today. I appreciate you all for being online with us. And again, we look forward to partnering with you, working with you, and helping this tool to be more useful to you as we go forward. Hope you all have a great day. Look forward to talking to you soon.